Steve Nichols, on-site lead in Chicago. But what you may not know is that I'm a triathlete and a screenwriter and independent filmmaker. Cut. What's up, everyone? I'm Steve Nichols, OP lead tech, North America and Chicago for Dreamtek, and ambassador of Brownette. For those who don't know, Brownette is a social organization within Dreamtek to specifically celebrate people of color and their achievements, as well as explore the narratives of our challenges to help create and chaperone change. Today's event embodies those successes and challenges. So without further ado, welcome to Dreamtek's first Brownette virtual event, considering we're all at home for the pandemic. This event is going to explore the successes and challenges in tech from the Black and Brown experience. Before I continue to go on, I want to also introduce the co-moderator, my partner in crime, one of the best techs in North American region, Key. But before I bring him on, check out this video.
Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Key Soto, on-site production technician from New York City. But what you may not know about me is that I am an avid electric unicycle rider. I can go from Sunnyside, Queens to the Upper West Side in Manhattan in 20 minutes. That's dope. I'm also an MC and producer. And don't tell anyone, but I'm still one of the only people who still like dubstep.
That's what's up. What's up, Key? How you doing, man?
What's up, guy? Hi, how you doing, everybody? Key Soto here, on-site production technician at Dreamtek. I'm really glad to be here. And, at first, I just want to say, I want to give you, Steven, some well-deserved credit, some props for spearheading the evolution of this Brownette group and this event, man. It's one of those things that I didn't really know I needed until I was in it. So tip of the hat to you for sure, man.
Thank you, man. Same here. I appreciate everyone that helped make it a reality, including senior leadership at Dreamtek and the ones who's putting the work in, the boots on the ground, everybody that we'll meet today. So I want to bring up the first panel. And what's going to happen is Key is going to moderate the second panel. I'll be moderating the first panel as well as being part of the conversation. I want to introduce two talented individuals that's in Brownette. Just check out these videos and we'll bring them up.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Ian, the second lead production technician in New York. I just wanted to share something that you may have not known about me. I am also a music producer. Music has been a big part of my life. It's inspired, honestly, me to get to where I'm at now. Music production in particular is the reason why I even jumped into the production field. So it's a very big part of my life. I'd say I've been producing for about 10 years now and steady going strong. So something you may have not known.
Welcome. This is my humble little studio. Come on in. Hello, Dreamtekers. Rene Ogando, On-Site Productions, Austin, Texas here. I was born in the Dominican Republic a long time ago. It's a beautiful island full of the most amazing beaches, food, and music one can ever imagine. But at the age of 10, I remember how my mom had to make the most incredible sacrifice and move my brother and myself to Miami, Florida. At the time, we didn't understand why she took such drastic transition. But looking back today, we can see that all of the sacrifices that were made were well worth it. Because today we are all successful because of those sacrifices. That is my story. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you get to enjoy the rest of this event.
What's up, guys? How you doing? Don't want to take you guys off mute. Okay.
Hey, what's going on?
Want to give a quick introduction of yourself? Go ahead.
Yeah, Renee here from Austin, Texas, On-Site Productions. And just want to say, give a shout to Stephen for putting this together and also for taking the initiative to gather this group together and allowing us to, explore all of these challenges that we see, and a lot of them that we have dealt with ourselves in the past. And I think this is an opportunity for us to come together and move the ball forward.
Thank you. Ian?
Hey guys, doing? My name is Ian. I'm actually the lead production technician, second lead production technician in New York, along with Cynthia, and happy to be here as well.
That's what's up, man. I'm happy we all here as well. So, we got a lot to cover today on our panel. I think it's some pretty good topics that I'm sure that, we can learn from ourselves as well as the viewing audience. So I'm going to just jump right in. What does diversity and inclusion look like in the tech workplace, and how do we begin erasing that digital divide? So for me personally, I think it starts with the at the top, of course, with companies like Dreamtek in the tech world that is aware of their impact to the problem and their contribution to the problem, as well as the problem, or rather the solutions to those problems. But before we can start, I guess, talking about the problem or the solutions, we have to talk about how much of the problem exists in the four walls of that workplace. And I think Dreamtek is doing a good job to start the discussion of diversity and inclusion by allowing us to use this platform to do so. So one of the things that I do want to talk about is, as I was reading an article about the digital divide in America in general, and it's typically the same story of low income versus high income neighborhoods. It was this article I was reading about Baltimore schools where they're trying to create policy and legislation where children from low income neighborhoods have an opportunity to go to other schools in other neighborhoods who may be funded better. For those who may not know, schools are basically funded in America based on the median income of the residents of that neighborhood. So if the median income is lower, then those schools in that neighborhood receive less funding than schools in better or more well-to-do affluent neighborhoods. So if these children in low-income neighborhoods have an opportunity to choose to go to another school, not in their neighborhood, they may be exposed to resources and equity and opportunities in technology and just digital culture, especially in the 21st century, that they may not have been exposed to in their own neighborhood. So that's something that I think is going to help remedy the problem just from a community standpoint, and as well as education. But in the workplace, something that I'm working on with Dreamtek, I'm very proud of, is helping to create an internship program that specifically targets young people of color. And this is going to, expose them to opportunities and just resources they didn't even know they didn't know about. It's one thing to know about something. It's another thing to know that you don't know about something, but it's something else to not know that you don't know. You don't even know you don't even know. So hopefully when this internship program gets started and we can introduce all of these different like jobs and technology and skill sets that they didn't even know exist. They didn't even know they didn't know exist. That can help shrink that divide a little bit. But what I want to ask you guys is what does diversity and inclusion in tech look like for you?
Yeah, and I agree with a whole lot of what you were saying there. It is something that is starting to get better now. I think people are starting to become more aware of the divide that exists right now and the challenges that exist. And companies are beginning to open up right now. I mean, this is a good example right here. Dreamtek giving us this opportunity, to raise awareness in this issue. It's just one good example of that. But there's a lot more work that needs to be done, honestly, to just breach that gap, and some of the things that you were saying are, right on target. It's just a whole systemic situation where people just have low opportunities when they come from low income, neighborhoods. That's what we see, So a lot of people that come from those environments, they already are at a very high disadvantage, when it comes to the competitive market out there, especially in the tech industry right now. And education is a big part of it, but another thing that we could be doing from our end is to just try to mentor some of these people. And I am very excited to hear about, the internship program that you mentioned. I think that is pretty much the key right there. It's just people that have made it, that be able to cross some of those obstacles, being able to look back and being able to pull your brother up, And I think that is pretty much the key to what we need to do right now moving forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. This old African proverb comes to mind. What you were saying: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Right? I agree with you, Ian. What's your thoughts on it?
For the most part, I think it's something that for me, I'm just doing not only just my career, but just in general, in a lot of fields, not only just with technology. I think it's one of those things where a lot of people aren't really aware of the opportunities out there until somebody either shows them or they come across it themselves. And a lot of the times when it comes down to certain situations, especially like with technology, a lot of people only look at it in a sense of outside looking in. They never really see the things of what it really takes to really get to that point. And I think with the obstacles that be, a lot of kids, especially kids of color, they tend to already outrule that. A lot of the things that I saw just in my childhood as a kid, especially gearing myself towards a production field and technology wise, there was a very rare, honestly, gateway for me to even get into through school. And honestly, even for people to understand, I remember when I talked to my guidance counselor for the first time about actually wanting to do something of this field. And she kind of didn't really know where to gear my direction towards, but she tried her best to, and I commend her for that. But I think it was just more so having that backing of somebody who really was just trying to understand where I wanted to go for my career, even just taking the time, even if they didn't understand. And it really helps when somebody not only feels like they have that support, but actually has somebody that they know that they could talk to. Because a lot of the kids that I know, when they think of event support or technology and things of that nature, they only see the media side of what the television shows you, what the songs that they hear, the recording studios and things of that nature. They don't really think about the aspects of all realms. And I think not only can we help that on the side of just what we do already by uplifting the people that we're around and the kids that we see, but honestly, just making sure that we stick to it in a sense of knowing that it doesn't come from just taking kids that are underprivileged and of color and helping them out. It's not more so about being a charity. It's more so about creating equality in a sense of making sure that they understand that just because they came from a different backing or a different financial backing, I should say, that doesn't mean that they're lesser of a person, and they actually deserve as much as an opportunity as anybody else does. So I think it all comes down to not only just realizing that it's not about just a sense of equality, but it's a sense of making sure that we all understand that this is just the world that we live in today. Like, we have to kind of get used to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are great points, Ian. It makes me think about how I myself ended up in tech, in the field of tech. And it was from a freelance filmmaker. He was just a freelance filmmaker. He would get contracted to do commercials for like DDB Needham, for Nike, and things like that. And I remember I would, over the summer, college break, summer break for college, you need a part-time job, you need some money. So I was always fascinated with media and film and things like that. It's funny that you bring up, like, it's not just about equality, but it's also about our values, right? And it was to be quite honest with you, it was a white guy who was a friend of a friend who knew that I was just obsessed with Spike Lee at the time. I hadn't seen a narrative of Black America told so honestly and genuinely until I saw School Days. about, just the intra racism that exists in the Black community. People may not know light skin versus dark skin and stuff like that. And so it was that triggered my interest. Like, man, we can tell our stories. And so it piqued my interest in film and just the art of cinema. And, so I met this guy, and he would bring me with him. And I was only making like $50, every time I went with him, but I learned, and that gave me access. The same thing that you're speaking of, just having access to someone who can offer that knowledge and that information. And one of the things that people, I think in general, that feeds their implicit bias, because we seem to think that, well, if you're not in that field, or if you're not working in tech, then it must mean that you're not working hard enough. The whole theory of meritocracy. But that's not it. Sometimes, just like you have food deserts, where you don't have like a produce store or something like that, you got a bunch of liquor stores and McDonald's in your neighborhood. You may not have like a produce food or a farmer's market in your neighborhood or your community. You can also have opportunity deserts where there's just no opportunity for you to gain access. That has nothing to do with someone's work ethic or interest in learning how to work hard. The opportunities themselves isn't there. So you need someone who's already in that field to open the door and reach out and say, hey, come in. So I'd like to ask you guys, how'd you guys end up in the tech field? Renee, let me start with you.
Yeah, pretty much exactly what you said. Somebody lent a really good hand to me and brought me along and took me under his wing. I came up with two-time Grammy Award winner John Thomas, and I worked for him for 2 years. We worked with artists like Casey and the Sunshine Band, Lauryn Hill,
wow,
Breed. Scott Stapp solo album.
Well, first of all, you're not gonna just name drop like that. That's
no,
crazy.
I'm just saying, like this was like this is how And at the time, I was very he met JT is what we call him. He met me at the school that I went. SAE is a audio engineering school, and he was one of the sponsors of the school. He was one of the instructors there, and he took me under his wing. He liked the way I play guitar and stuff, and I was very undisciplined. I was very feisty, and still kind of learning the culture, if you will. And it was a really intricate internship for me. But I learned a lot about the industry. I learned a lot about many things, and also I learned a lot about diversity. And the importance of it. And I also learned, importantly, how many people were kept out of this, of this industry. Some of us were lucky because we were brought up by somebody, but not everybody has that, same advantage. So, I think it's exactly what you were talking about there.
Yeah, that's great, man. I didn't know that. So I might have to hit you up with a bunch of questions after this. That's pretty dope. Ian, how did you get in the field?
For me, it was more so, honestly, a little self-discovery in a sense. I started producing by myself when I was in high school. Like, I always was a fan of music, so I would go into like my cousin's house, which he's a music producer himself, and he would have a studio there and stuff. And I would just go over there and mess with his stuff, mess with his equipment. And I think around my junior years when I really decided that I really wanted to go further with it. So I just started doing my own thing. And honestly, won't even lie. I would cut school. I would literally not go to last period and just do what I wanted to do, because I knew that there was nothing there for me, because I knew what I wanted to do. And I think I was one of the rare few kids in my school. I've always was told by my family members and my friends that you always knew what you wanted to do. And I don't think it's the case. I think it was just more so I've always just followed my intuition, and I never really listened to anybody in the sense of I don't want to take your advice, but more so I knew where I wanted to go with my life, and I knew how I wanted to mold it. So throughout high school, I was doing my own thing. Then I met my guidance counselor, who I told actually what I wanted to do. And she actually took me on a field trip to NBC Studios. And it was actually one of the first times where I actually saw a whole production set, whole studio, and just honestly a media company in general. And that's what honestly opened my eyes after a while towards the different things and the different opportunities in those fields. So after that, I went to SAE Institute as well, just like Renee, and I was in there for about a year, and I interned different studios, Electric Lady, and things of that nature. But it wasn't my suit until I really got into AV, and I started to really realize that there was not only more stability, but in a sense of there was more of a complex feel towards it instead of just being a one track producer or, you know, an engineer. And it really opened my eyes. So working at my previous job, Liberty Science Center, is where I actually honed in a lot of my skills, did a lot of various things, and ended up here. And honestly, I could say that my path is probably one of the more unorthodox ones, but I honestly wouldn't change it. So
Facts. I'm with you, bro. I'm with you.
Hey, I just want to say something to Ian there, man. Hendrix, one of my favorite artists, man. So I wish I could, you know, be a fly in the wall.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was dope. It was pretty fun. It was pretty fun, minus the cleaning of the bathrooms.
Same thing over here. Cause I know Steven was like, I was name dropping early, but I was only an intern at the time, so you know, I don't want to take any of that credit.
Hey, man, those are still two amazing stories, and it's so interesting to hear like how you guys came into that, and that you know, it just speaks to the reality that it's not always about meritocracy. You don't necessarily get opportunities in life based on how hard you're working. That's a myth, you know. It doesn't speak to just the sinister powers that are locking us out sometime. You know, I was introduced to media and technology to a certain degree by someone who wasn't black. You know, it was a white guy who, because of his values and him maybe confronting something in himself to say, hey, you know, why should I not, you know, teach this human being, someone who's interested, and give this person, you know, access, and then let them see how hard they're willing to work to continue to learn more. So it's about access. It's not just about equality, but it's also about equity. I want to move on to the next topic. It has much to do about identity and bringing our whole self to the workplace. For most of us that work in tech, we work in predominantly white environments, and sometimes we can find ourselves conforming to the predominant, you know, cultures and styles of the workplace, of that office, of that venue. So sometimes we find ourselves having to compromise how we speak, how we walk, how we talk, the things that we love. And I was reading an article that said that we should continue as people of color, namely, especially in the 21st century, because the world is becoming more and more brown, right? We should continue to bring our whole black and brown self in these spaces the same way. Now, I'm not saying we're supposed to be walking around in like flip flops and do rags. Don't get me wrong, but we should feel comfortable with being ourselves, because it's only one Steven, it's only one Ian, it's only one Renee. And you know, you mentioned diversity earlier, Renee. That experience that you had with the person who kind of mentored you, you were teaching that person as well as they were teaching you, because that's what I got out of my mentor. Probably the same with you, Ian. So like, how do you feel about that conversation and that topic of the importance of bringing your black and brown self? Let me start with you, Ian.
I think it's honestly one of the best things as not only a person of color, but any individual could do. Like, you have to be authentic to yourself. One of the biggest things that I prided myself on, even when I just started this position, at my previous job, I was, I was younger. I was the youngest, honestly, dude on my team. And, you know, with that, you don't dress the part. You know, you want to wear your young kid stuff. You know, you want to look fly as a, you know, and stuff like that. But my biggest thing was that I've always believed in the motto, it's not on you, it's in you. And I think a lot of people would judge me from the outside at my old job, and just in general throughout life. Like, they wouldn't understand me until they really talked to me, and then they got where I was coming from. And it took a lot of honestly, it took a lot of self-restraint from myself to not wanting to conform to certain ideas and certain things at certain times, because I've had to tell myself I literally would just feel uncomfortable in my skin. And I think the biggest thing is just more so realizing at the end of the day, you got to go to sleep with those pains, those feelings in your heart, the mind games that are in the battles that you face. And a lot of that stuff can honestly be alleviated if you were just true to yourself. And a lot of the times I think it's just the biggest thing I realized that stops people from being true to themselves is that they're scared of not even what somebody else would think of them. They're scared that when the person thinks that of them, that they may not be that person. And a lot of the people that I've talked to, the first thing that they say is they kind of downplay themselves, or they kind of try to, oh, I'm just this, that, and third. And it's really about how you talk yourself up. And it's not until you make it, it's not anything of that, but you really have to embody yourself throughout the whole situation. So I think not only just making sure that you stay true to yourself, but keeping your integrity, making sure that you're walking around with some boldness in your heart, because at the end of the day, this life is going to test you, but you want to make sure that you're giving it your true self. You're not walking around fighting the battle like you're somebody else.
Absolutely, man. Malcolm X said once that, never compromise your dignity and self-respect. And, if someone's not going to like you, they're not going to like you. You don't have to say or do anything. The burden isn't on us to convince someone to like us, right? It's on the other person to convince themselves of why they're being ugly to just not like someone at surface value. So that's their problem, right? Renee, let me ask you, like, what's been your experience with that?
All right, it's to your point there, trying to always, double down and triple down on trying to be likable, and trying to be approachable. For me, at the beginning, it was a struggle because I came here when I was, very young, and we didn't know the language, we didn't know anything, and so it was at the beginning for me, it was a cultural shock. I had a big problem at the beginning speaking.
Where you from? Where you from?
I'm Dominican, so as a Dominican, I came in and, language was a big barrier for me. And it's almost like, it reminds me of the case of when people stutter and then that becomes like their own prison because they can't really express themselves. For me, that was a big prison for a long time, but it pushed me to just kind of dive into it. And then I hit rock bottom because, it was like I would open my mouth and people would laugh at me. That was basically the big struggle during that period. But, it makes you stronger, I think. When you deal with things like that, it makes you stronger. It makes you have a thicker skin. And I think that many of us that have experienced some kind of, being put in the spotlight like that, or just being challenged or being discriminated upon, which has happened too in my experience. It just makes you a different human being, and the interesting thing for me is that it makes me more of a little bit more of a fighter, but at the same time, with each accomplishment that I'm able to make, despite all of my shortcomings, it makes me more proud of those accomplishments. So it becomes a driving factor for me, but it is very difficult for people to be able to convert that. And a lot of people just kind of dive deeper into all of their insecurities,
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. We're more alike than what many people may think, black and brown people versus, white people, whomever, all these races are just social constructs. When we get down to it, it reminds me of a story that Dr. King shared when he had got locked up protesting in Alabama. And his jailer, one of the people who was, I guess, like an officer, he was saying, like, man, why you out here protesting? Don't you know you're just gonna get hit upside the head for standing up for yourself, and they just gonna lock you up? And Dr. King was like, I got to, I guess I'll just get locked up and get hit upside the head. And he started asking him questions like, how much money do you make? where do you live? And then he said, well, you should be protesting with me too. We got a lot of the same problems. So
I think that's what we are in Brown at, right? Because we're big and stronger in numbers, and I think we're all together in this struggle, And I think that once that tide lifts, the first boat, I think all the other boats are gonna kind of go up with that.
So long as the tide we riding on don't get disrupted, right? Some people are disrupted, but those are great stories, man. I think that it is important to be able to help introduce diversity into any situation, into any workplace, right? Into anything. Everyone's learning from each other. It's more than one way to do it, right? It makes me think about the next topic of discussion because I want to really use all of the time we have. I want to ask you guys. I've been confronted with this, and it's no. I don't think it's any wrong answer. I think there's only true answers, and that is it our job to educate non-Black and brown people to our experiences? Meaning, 2020 has been a very difficult year. Just outside of the pandemic, just unbridled, like just seemingly nonstop videos of unarmed Black people being, murdered, flat out murdered by the police, whether it's George Floyd or, any of the other ones, being shot and paralyzed in front of their children. It's something it's a living nightmare for a lot of us. I know I was out in the streets this past summer protesting in the whole nine, and we saw what came out of that. But a lot of conversations started up because of that. It was something that wasn't new, but because of the amount of attention it received, and you couple that with the pandemic and everyone is at home and everyone has time for it. You can't run from it. And we have this crazy person in office and Donald Trump, thank God he's leaving. I think that, we were in a situation that we could no longer run from it as a nation. We had to confront it. And I think technology helped push that envelope. So, let me ask you guys, when you are approached by a non-Black or brown person who just wants to know, do you feel obligated to be able to answer their questions, or should they take some ownership on their own? They're not going to be able to read all of our experiences. All of our experiences can't be put in a book, can't be put in a movie. Some things, suffice it to say, is intangible, and it's like mouth to ear knowledge. You can only hear it from a personal perspective, and none of us we're not like just one group of people. All of us are different. But I like to know from you guys. Ian, let me start with you. What's your perspective on being able to talk to people who don't look like us about our experiences? Do you feel obligated? Is there pressure there?
To be quite honest with you, it honestly depends on the situation for me. Me personally, I feel like I deliberately don't have to go out of my way to teach anybody anything, because at the end of the day, I took the initiative to not only learn just throughout life, but more so the way I was taught wasn't taught off of a biased or a inequality standpoint. So when I view things, I don't view it from a standpoint of, oh, let me teach you this because you're a certain color, or let me teach you this because this is how my color does it, or things of that nature. I'm showing it to you because you're a person and this is how I operate, and you may operate a different way, and it's okay. But one of the biggest things that I realized is that being especially a young Black man in times that are precedented to be better days for our culture and our time period, but as you could see that it's still not getting any better, it makes you think, do you have to do it? It's definitely not obligated, but I feel like if you want to make sure that your side of the story is heard from your truth, I think it's necessary in certain aspects, because there's been times where I've been approached just with certain questions and just, accusations just because of the color of my skin and things of that nature. And I think it took not only my patients to really, to the person I am, to really have to tell them about themselves, but not telling them about themselves in a sense of getting at them and nagging them, or more so I could say ragging them, dragging them about their ideologies, but more so letting them understand that the way they're viewing things and situational wise is totally opposite from how I will view it. And not only that, making sure that they understand that at the end of the day, my color of my skin isn't going to change. Like I'm still going to be black, and there's going to still be other colors in skin tones out there. And I think it's the biggest thing of just honestly realizing that this is it's a melting pot. It's literally comes down to you cannot be a person to I should say to take the culture, as they say, and use it as a form of your entertainment or popularity, but still not having any attachment to it in education. It's like saying that you could love rap music, but you don't know any black rap artists or things of that nature, or people of color, or basketball players. And obviously that's literally impossible to do these days, but it's one of those things where you have to educate yourself. And these things are not only in just from these speeches that we hear, from the day-to-day things that we do, but you also see them in just regular day life. And I think it's comes down to just more so you got to understand that at the end of the day, it takes up to you to really want to take that education further. I could tell you something, but that doesn't mean you're going to absorb it the way it should be.
Right. So, absolutely. Great points. Great points. I love that. I agree. I don't have any problem with talking to any human being about an experience that I had. That's my view on it. But I don't want to let someone off the hook by thinking that because they're asking me something that they're not confronting their own confirmation bias, which is their perspective of the world is informed by their perception. In the moment that they realize that they have some implicit biases that we all have, every last one of us. If you're not confronting your own implicit bias, how do you then confront your own confirmation bias? When you come across someone who listens to Nas, Jay-Z, and maybe they listen to Mozart, maybe they like, Spike Lee films, but then they love foreign films, or they love the Joffrey Ballet. How do those two coexist in the same space? Because the media, as we understand it, doesn't present those types, those phenotypes. It's just one type of black person. We're athletes, or we're gangsters, or we're drug dealers, or we're, the old tropes. But I agree with you, so that's the problem with having the conversations with black and brown people about our experiences, that they themselves are not confronting, their own implicit bias. So I'd like to ask you, Renee, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, to pick up from where you guys left off, it is virtually impossible to try to help somebody that really doesn't want to help themselves and already made their decisions about where they want to, what kind of bed they want to make, and if they want to lay on it or not, So, but my door is always open, and always has been, to help people that really want to come in, to step in through that door. But like you said before, it's got to be something very genuine. I think a lot of us on this side of the aisle, we are ready, and we stand ready to bring a lot of people the education they need in this subject, and to welcome them into a more inclusive world if they are ready to leave, the past behind. But it isn't, it's a big undertaking right now for all of us as people to kind of bridge that gap. I would say something that for me, in my own experience, like, kind of like picking up what Ian was saying, it's like I was mentored by a white person like you, and he gave me a different perspective of like, well, this is how it looks when you're here, when you're in this club, And so, but I could pick up some biases even from him, you know. And what I could tell you is there's no way that person is going to know what my own life experience is and what it took for me to get here and my family to get here. And I don't expect those people to ever understand that, you know. So their vision of the world could be a little bit more narrow than mine. But maybe we could do something to help expand that vision a little bit more, you know, and broaden that horizon a little bit more. It is not our responsibility to do so, but I think it should be a contribution that we should be prepared to do if we want to change this situation moving forward.
Absolutely. Well said too, brother. Well, you know, that's our time. That's our panel, man. I can't thank you guys enough for the knowledge y'all dropped, you know, the personal experiences y'all shared. And I think it's going to be conversations like this that helps, you know, create catalysts for change and help push the conversation and drive the conversation even more. I think 2020, no matter how long it took, I think it's finally starting to create the change that we want to see, even if it's incremental. And I want to just salute you too, just for, you know, representing people of color in the industry. It's not easy. It never has been, even before us and the people before them, you know, but, you know, we all picking up the torch and we doing it together and we moving forward. So I want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. I hope the audience learned some things, and this won't be the last time we do this. So we're going to get ready for the second panel and let them continue to drop some more knowledge too. All right. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Dreamtek, for the opportunity as well.
Appreciate it.
Hello, everyone. This is Key again. Back. First, I just want to say that was a really, really dope panel. That was some awesome information. So I'm going to be heading the next panel where we focus more on the personal experiences that, you know, some of us, people of color, might have in the workplace, both positive and negative. Before I introduce the next panel, let's go ahead and roll the video.
Hello, everyone. My name is Misharzi, and I'm an event coordinator in New York. Okay, so I was born and raised in a sweet little area of New York called the Bronx. I found that I'm the most confident and at peace when I get to be creative, whether it's drawing or my recent interest. I've been creating 3D models in both Blender and Unity. Immersing myself in the world of augmented reality has changed the story I tell myself. Nothing is impossible.
Hi, my name is Jared Gomez. I'm a second-generation Mexican-American. Some fun facts about me. I've been in martial arts for about 16 years. My favorite comic book heroes are Nightwing and Zorro. And what I would like to do as a career is be a motion caption performer for those that make the video games or do the get the suits on for the movies. That's what I want to do.
Awesome. All right. Hello, Sharzi and Jared. How you guys doing?
Very good. Thank you.
Good. Sharzi, you want to start by introducing yourself?
Yeah. So my name is Misharzi. I actually work in the New York region. I'm an event coordinator. Been here for about 2.5 years now.
Great. And you, Jared?
Hi, my name is Jared Gomez. I've just completed my year in August, so this is my first almost over a year of completing with Dreamtek, and I'm looking forward to this.
Great. Cool. So let's begin our with the first question and focus on our personal journeys and how we got here. I'll start with myself real quick. So I have a filmmaking background. I graduated from college with a communications degree with focusing on film and video. And what I noticed though is that after I graduated, my school didn't really give me the tools that I needed to actually thrive in terms of employment. You know what I mean? I had the skills, but they didn't give me any of those tools. So soon after I graduated, I applied for this scholarship program sponsored by the city. It was called the Made in New York program. And it was like an intensive, application process. But I got in, and basically this scholarship, they taught you how to be a PA, a production assistant in the film industry and film and TV. So I got in, which was great. And then after I graduated from that program, they did 2 years worth of mentorship when it came to like getting me work. And so that really thrusted me into the industry, which is really great. And so I basically did a lot of freelancing for, film and TV. Then I started to work, I started to notice there's a whole other industry, the AV industry. So I started to freelance in that industry. So I went from freelancing to getting a 9 to 5 at a bank. So I got to experience sort of the corporate world, the corporate AV world. So I did that for several years. Then I went back to freelancing, and now I'm back to sort of the corporate AV world. So it was sort of great to see the industry from both those perspectives. But what about you, Sharzi? You want to tell us a little bit about your journey?
Yeah. So when I was growing up, my father always said, the key to life is finding the best job, right? He's instilled that in me. And so he's like, to find a long-lasting career. So at first, I started out in the medical field. I'm like, and no matter what happens, that'll always be around. So I started in physical therapy, and I worked in hospitals, but I didn't feel like it was like clicking for me. I didn't feel like I pushed to do it. So then I left the medical field, got my certification in project management, and realized that there's a whole industry in the technology world for project management. And I would do events and things on the side, but it wasn't until recently that I started doing event coordination in the tech field, and it's completely changed my perception.
Yeah, how about you, Jared?
So if you were to go way, way back, back to the first Nintendo, I was already putting in the coaxial cable to the TV. So that's, I guess, my first intro to video. But fast forward a few years, I was trying to pursue an acting career. I got an art degree, but my real experience actually comes from this previous company I was with for 9 years, and I learned all my AV stuff from them. And this is, I started from the ground up as a normal technician. Over time, I became a meeting room coordinator to a project manager for this company that I was with. And in that company, while still doing that, I was still trying to do a little bit of acting on the side. And so got to do some work on the film in front of the camera and behind the camera. Then I got someone who used to work at my previous company, now is working with another organization that we work with Dreamtek. He said, "Hey, they got an opening. You wanna do it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." So I sent him my resume, and here I am. So, one more thing. Props to the AV techs, Kevin and Fernando. I know, as we're all techs here, giving you much love, guys. But yeah, that was me.
Awesome. Only something a tech would do. Give a shout out to another tech who's working here. That's dope. Okay, great. So so let's begin our discussion with some of our personal experiences that we might have in the workplace as people of color. It's interesting. Like, I think a lot of people in this country, in the U.S., some people they feel like we live in a post-racial society, which is really interesting to me, because all you really have to do is talk to us, just talk to us, or do some reading, and you quickly realize that it's definitely not the case. I'll quickly will tell you a little bit about some of the stuff that I might have experienced, in my work job, in my workplace, when it comes to like, we can, when we talk about these things, it can be anywhere from like overt racism to like microaggressions, right? But one of my experiences that I noticed was, so I was freelancing for an AV company, and when I entered the pool of freelancers, I noticed that it was pretty mixed, which I thought was dope. And 3 of the top freelancers were all Black, and I thought that was really interesting. I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. And a lot of them, showed me a lot of what I know today. What I noticed was that there was this one particular hotel that we freelanced at. that wanted one of the freelancers to work for them full time. And this was something that hotel and our freelance company were negotiating. And the person who got the job was actually a white tech who had only worked for the freelance company for like 1 year, whereas those 3 other black techs worked for this freelance company for like 4 years. And what was interesting about that was that like, you know, some people might say, hey, like maybe we're not taking into consideration all the variables of why that white tech got the job. You know, sometimes they might be right. But other times, and I think this is one of those examples, you take all the variables into account, and like the only reason it could be sometimes is that companies just want a white face, you know, to represent them. And I talked to these other black techs, and some of these techs were like really on top of their game, super professional, you know. And they all told me that they also were interested in the opportunity, but they didn't get it. And so it's things like this that you really have to keep your eyes open and talk to people to understand what's going on. How about you, Sharzi? Tell us any experience that you can tell us connected to this kind of stuff.
I think the area that I want to hone in on is the unconscious bias, because I with my hopes, I don't think people intend to have these kind of like predetermined ideas of Black people or any other kind of person that's opposite of you. But, so, you know, when I walk around the office, any office, my previous employer, even the current one, I walk around regular, but confident, right? You walk around, you grab some water, you sit on a couch, whatever. And I was spoken to a couple of coworkers later and just people that I just met in the office. And they've all said, you know, when I first saw you walking around, I was like, you had a bad attitude, but you're still nice. And I know they're intending to be like a compliment, like, oh, thank you. But there's an unconscious bias behind that. It's like, so if you see a young African-American girl who's walking around with confidence, you assume she has an attitude, maybe she's rude, X, Y, and Z, but you've had no actual one-to-one communication with her. The same goes for sometimes you might have not as a disagreement, but, you know, maybe you're talking about ideas in a project with your coworkers or amongst a new group that you're working with. I went to school and I had the same issue where I was working with a group. And there are times where we learned, I feel like a lot of African-American women, you learn to overly humble yourself, because if you appear too strong in a group, at times it's looked at as, oh, maybe they're being too boastful, they're being too aggressive. But if other cultures come on and they're very strong and they're like, hey, you know, I want to do this, I want to do that, that other person can see this, oh, wow, they're a strong woman, you know, they're, you know, so powerful, but it's not the same sometimes for like African-American girls. I've heard people say, oh, I think she's just too flustered and too emotional. And instead of hearing, wow, maybe she just had a really strong passion for her point. But like, that's the kind of area that people should kind of like be mindful of. Why do you think I had an attitude before you ever met me? You know?
Yeah, that's a great point. I find like I experienced a similar thing where oftentimes in the workspace, I have, you know, a demeanor that's like, maybe like that. And people would, they would interpret that as being, oh, this person has an attitude. Whereas like, that's not really what's going on. That's just literally how my neutral state is. You know what I mean? But so that's pretty interesting. So what about you, Jared?
I guess the more prominent, kind of example of that is actually when I felt in the acting realm. You know, my acting coach would say that, you know, you have the skin to play many ethnicities, but then she only focused on me playing Mexican roles, and to try to do the Mexican accent, you know, exaggerate on it. And what if I don't want to do the Mexican accent? Why do I have to do that? And so there was, and then in asking that question, you know, it's what the casting directors are looking for. You know, it's the standard of these stereotypes of what they want to see versus what should be reality. You know.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's like, what is it about our society that doesn't want to be able to take in people from different backgrounds and different personalities of people from different backgrounds, right? And different phenotypes, like Stephen was saying earlier. Do you guys have an idea why is it, do you think our society doesn't want to accept, hey, like a black person who likes rock, right? Where they don't even know that rock music started, right? From black origins. Do you guys have any idea why is it that our society can't take this nuance in from people? Yeah.
I mean, personally, I feel like, because it does happen, people were so surprised that I loved Insane for Britney Spears. And I'm like, they're the number one selling at the time, the number one selling artist. Why would you be surprised, right? But I think, lack of exposure, right? Possibly with having more, it sounds horrible, but like more black friends, more Spanish friends, more people from other cultures. So it's like, which is why we always say like the idea of diversity and inclusion is so important, because how can we expect people who only see their own kind to know what it's like for a black person or a Spanish person or any other ethnicity? You know what I mean? So that's my idea.
What about you, Jared? Sign a share there.
It is a really good question that you have to kind of really think about. I guess another question would be, why is society comfortable with these stereotypes? Why are they the phenotypes of like black guys listening to rock music, white guys listening to rap music? Why are we bubbled in these things? And it might come down to what feels comfortable to the individual. It's the norm, so it should be that. So if they don't have that change of mindset and that willingness to actually accept things are different, then perhaps they will not expand their bubble, and their bubble just remains small and confined, where there's a whole world of people wanting to just with different music, different styles of taste, cultural things that if you're willing to learn, then perhaps you can expand your knowledge. But it is a really good question.
Yeah, no, definitely. And me coming from a filmmaking background, images, just like what you were saying, Sharzi, images is so important. Like, what are people exposed to? And I always felt like it was really important to just show different sides of people from different backgrounds. To move to the next topic, kind of want to piggyback off of what Sharzi said earlier. And this is the idea of like imposter culture, right? Or imposter syndrome, which is the idea where like you feel like it's the idea of juggling different identities, right? And then like feeling fake if you express a certain trait from that identity in the workspace, right? A good question you can ask is like, yeah, how much of yourself do you feel comfortable bringing to the workspace, or how much of yourself are you editing, right? This can be racial, this could be gender-based, this can be class-based, which I feel a lot of people don't often talk about. But, for me personally, my own personal sort of story with this is that I felt like earlier on, as a young adult, like I felt that I would come to work and I would totally not bring any part of myself to the job, right? I would literally be like almost like a robot. In fact, I remember when I was in that program, that Made in New York program sponsored by the city, they told me, hey, Key, you're a great worker, you go above and beyond. But they said, but they literally say, but who are you? What's your opinions, right? And it took me a while. It took me more than 10 years to like really feel comfortable, because I feel like I would come into work and like somebody would be like, hey, what's up, Key? How's your day? And I'll be like, I don't know, and I would continue walking, and gotta get to work, just do my job, And it took a lot of time for me to train myself to just express the way I feel about things, which is also tricky because I'm just kind of an intense dude. I tend to want to talk about controversial topics, politics and whatnot. But I noticed that once I started to do that, other people wanted to talk about this stuff too, especially freelancers, right? Freelancers are a special group of individuals. So What do you guys think, Shrazi? What do you think about this idea? Like, have you personally ever felt this imposter syndrome at the workspace?
I want to start by saying I do work with UT, and I felt your energy from the first week that I've ever met you. Like, you were very your authentic self. You were real, and I think that's why people are drawn to you. Like, I can have the craziest day and feel comfortable. Like, I can just talk to you about it. So I feel like definitely keep bringing your whole self. It is definitely appreciated at the office. So yeah, I have experienced it. I actually experienced it in my VR class. I was taking augmented and virtual reality class starting at the beginning of this year, before COVID hit, and even after. But when I first started, it was an open class, and I was assuming, oh, I'm going to go into this class, and it's going to be just people learning it from scratch. And so I sit in the class, and it's a little over 15 people, but there were only 2 females, right? I was obviously one of the 2 females, but the only Black female. And so I have a fully male-dominated class, only 2 females. And I was like, it's fine. You know what? We're all learning. We're all going to be in the same area. We're all on the same level. And as people were talking, everyone had a different experience. Everyone was like, well, yeah, I have my architect business, or, oh, yeah, I have my game that I started 3 years ago, or I have an Oculus, I have this high-end computer. And I didn't have any of those things. I'm like, I don't have an Oculus. I don't have this rigged up computer. I don't have any of these experiences, nor do anyone around me. Like, we don't have those. We didn't even know about it, like the VR experience. So immediately I was like, well, I don't belong here. And I felt that level of like, I should just leave the class and maybe just do some back learnings. But I didn't do that. I actually stayed. I froze up, but I stayed. And then there were times where the class was going at a pretty fast pace. And so I would go into the class. I have to like talk to people, learn things, and then go home and learn basic steps. How do I copy and paste, keyboard shortcuts? And so it was like very overwhelming, but it's like this level where you have to just be like in that moment. Why do I feel like I don't belong here? Am I any different than anybody else? And so it's like, if I saw another Black person, would I feel better? Maybe a little bit, but at the same time, it's like, I did have to like overcome that. And so in overcoming that, I was actually very fortunate because I ended up being elected as the project manager for the entire team. Because I was talking to everybody. I was like, so what do you know? Can you teach me that? Can you teach me this? And so it's like when you overcome it, kind of like how you said, you kind of like feel like, wow, actually people are communicating with me. There's actually can be a very positive experience. And I'm opening up their eyes. Like, yeah, you know what? People in VR can look all types of ways, not just, the normal male dominated, community and stuff. It's cool.
Project management. Hell yes. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. And Jared, do you have any thoughts about this topic?
I do want to kind of touch on the Anglo-conformity part of it. Where I come from, the Rio Grande Valley, that's South Texas. That's like Mexico is my neighbor, pretty much. There's this. It's not really a class gap, but so I'm a second generation Mexican American, and my grandparents were immigrants who immigrated into the States and became legal. But then there's this cultural mindset down in the Rio Grande Valley where they're kind of somewhat gatekeeping. They're kind of putting that stiff arm away from the first generations or second, third generation Mexican Americans, that they see the Mexicans it's a class thing that they're coming in, but they kind of keep them at arm's length because they are the wealthier one, and they are also kind of putting these other people that are looking like them with the same skin tone into like a box. And it's sad because some of these are like my own family members that have that snobbish mindset, a snobbish attitude of I'm better than you and that I've earned my way, when in reality they kind of had that same handout as a lot of the white community has been given, because the Rio Grande Valley has the majority are Mexicans, Mexican Americans, Mexicans, white then come into as the minorities actually, but here we have Mexicans that are acting just like whites in all sorts of things, the handouts, like that mindset, and so that like I was mentioning, it's sad for me to see that, and I've kind of had that mindset too early on, because it was something I was aware of. It was something that was kind of not taught, but it was kind of understood. And so as I got older, then I can kind of take a step back and realize that I need to change. And so, and a lot of that was having to do my own research, diving into diverse communities where we're just this melting pot, as you mentioned earlier, of different cultures and learning from them. So that's my take on it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You mentioned Anglo conformity, and yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's like that can be seen as the idea of like, you know, reaching for whiteness or white supremacy. But it that also has a race component, but it also has a class component as well, right? And so yeah, that it's really interesting, because I think that the class, like for me, for example, right, being born and raised in the Bronx, like you notice that if you go to college and you're educated, and then you start, you know, working in a certain workspace where you start to make more money and whatnot, you start maybe perhaps chilling with different people. You're right, Jared. You do have to kind of like look at yourself and keep yourself in check a little bit, right? Because you can get like thrusted into another world, and sometimes it can be easy not to look back. You know what I mean? And so that's really interesting that you should say that. Sharzi, do you have any thoughts about that? Have you sort of experienced this to any capacity?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely start conforming to your surroundings. This might sound horrible, but I feel like also naturally, sometimes as females, we tend to, like, you know, if we're doing relationships too, we'll kind of like conform to certain things. We're like, oh, you know, you are interested in that, so am I, and we kind of, you know, end up changing ourselves. But it is important, like you said, as far as not to lose your authentic self, because then that is when now you don't even recognize yourself, you don't really know who you are, and then let's say if you're doing it at a job and you leave that job, you're all over the place. So I definitely experienced it in so many areas, almost every area of my life at some point. But I think, honestly, just taking a step back and just remembering you're something like, who am I? Because it doesn't feel right anymore. You start feeling like things are not really adding up. And yeah, it's not better.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I wanted to move on to a topic of mental health and self-care. Yeah, you know, look, it's just like Steven said before, it's been a tough year. It's been a tough year for everyone. I think that I can say that it's particularly been a tough year for I would say for Black people, at least in this country, in the US. And you know, the after the murder of George Floyd, and after the BLM protests began, like things were pretty intense. I think that was the most difficult part of this year for me. I think, you know, one of the things that I do for self-care is go out jogging, right? I personally need movement. You know, I need to move around. The fact that we're all working from home, this is the worst. I hate this with a passion. But jogging really helps me. And during this period back in June, July, I didn't want to go out jogging. I literally thought that if I were to go out jogging, I literally thought my neighbors were just going to call and be like, oh, someone is like running, or someone robbed someone and they're just running away, right? Maybe because of my dreads or something. And there were a couple of days where I was like so paralyzed, which was a feedback loop, right? Feedback loop, because the very thing that I needed to calm myself, I couldn't do, right? And it was pretty bad. And you know, I think mental health and self-care is something, especially in some of our communities, people of color, Black people, feel like it needs, I don't know, it almost like it needs to become cool or edgy, or because I feel like in some of our communities, it can be seen as corny, right? You can get laughed at if you start talking about these topics. But I'm going to share one of the things that I do, and then we'll go to you guys. One of the things, other than jogging and meditating, but one of the things that I do that I think that's been really helpful recently is this thing called 5-5-5. And what this is that in the mornings you dedicate 15 minutes, 5 minutes of 5 minutes of inspirational reading. Inspirational reading could be anything that you like. It doesn't have to be like a specific kind. Then 5 minutes of positive writing, and then 5 minutes of meditation, right? The reason this has been so powerful for me, in particular, is the middle one, the 5 minutes of positive writing or positive journaling. Once again, right, positive journaling, some people hear this and they're like, oh, I don't know. What do you mean affirmations, right? Affirmations are corny as hell. But if you learn how to do positive writing in a way that stylistically works for you, it doesn't have to feel that way. It doesn't have to feel corny. And that's what I do. And me being sort of like a rapper, an MC or whatever, like I'm able to do that very easily, right? But writing positively, no matter how corny, no matter how fake it feels, but doing that for 5 minutes in the morning, literally, I noticed that throughout the day, whenever like negative thoughts would come up in my head, I noticed how they were being replaced by those positive ones that I was writing. And it's just so powerful. It's just 15 minutes every morning, and it had a great impact on me. Sharzi, what do you do for self-care? What do you do to just stay chill?
So a couple of things. For self-care in particular, I know that I love having like a ritual or habits, right, daily. But sometimes, you get lost into your daily routine. So like before COVID hit, it's like, oh, go to work, go to class, and I cook, and I do this, and I do that. And so for some reason, being very busy makes me feel leveled, right? I feel like, oh, like everything is all good when I'm busy. And then when COVID hit and everything stopped, I was all over the place. That first month and a half, I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. And then, of course, I got consuming social media. It was a lot, right? So what I ended up doing is every now and then, and our body tells us when we need to slow down. If I felt a little lightheaded or I felt a little like irritable, I would stop wherever I was. And when I do that, I started I look inward and I would be like, wow, have I been drinking water? Did I even eat this morning? Why is my body sore? And it was like, before I worried about, going here, going there, doing any of these things, I started just taking care of the most basic needs that I was just avoiding. And I feel like we've all had it where you're like, I haven't drinking enough water. You drink a cup and you're like, oh my God, you feel so much better in like 10 minutes. So I started doing that. And then also for mental health, similar to you, I started drawing a lot. Started drawing and I started painting a lot. And so it was key for me, especially in painting, was not really to paint to escape all my anxieties or my thoughts, but to think about it while I'm painting. Because there's something, well, I don't know if it's for everybody, but there's something that's common that when you're thinking about things that are very anxious, but you're also doing something that you enjoy, it's like I'm talking about it, I'm like, wow, that's really crazy, but I'm also painting, and at the end of when I get through my thoughts and I see my completed work, it just feels like it all just makes a lot of sense. I feel like I got through it. The issues are still there, but it's there where I feel a lot calmer looking at it. And then the most recent thing I started, which I recommend everyone to do if you're interested, is the joy journal. So similar to you, but the joy journal is as I go through my day, when I feel really excited about something, no matter what it is, it can even be maybe picking up lunch, anything, I write it down in a journal. And so when you do that, the idea is that you do that for 30 days, you write down all the areas when you felt really excited out of nowhere. And then it kind of gives you like a path of what you should continue doing in your life. Like, why did I feel so happy in this area? What does that mean? And how can I incorporate more of these in my day-to-day, life? So that was helpful.
Nice. Yeah, I'm writing all these techniques down, man. I'm an anxious person. I need all of them. Give me all of them. How about you, Jared? How about you?
I just want to say props to both you guys, because to me, mental health is such a big, crucial part of my life. A little bit more about me. I'm a martial artist. I'm a martial arts instructor, and I've been in martial arts for about 13, 14 years. The style is Shotokan. But mental health is such a crucial aspect in that. But here's, not only do I work out, because I haven't really been practicing martial arts for about a year and a half or so, but I still work out. I still do some meditations. I have like a weekly meditation group I'm a part of, in which we just kind of relax. I will do, I'll watch some comedy stuff, things that make me happy. Anime, I love anime. I'll sit together with the wife and we'll watch some funny things together. But here's some cool things about that. And this is kind of a proven study, and I kind of wrote it down that whenever you actually, I kind of quoting Bruce Lee here in Being Like Water. You know, you have to have that in. When he was referring to it, it was martial arts being calm and yet powerful. Here we can apply it to, you know, your mental well-being of letting things go, letting things flow in and out. But whenever you hold on to these emotions, and this is actually a study that's been proven, that your anxiety levels, your elevated stress levels that are at a constant high can actually weaken your immune system. And so understanding the body, you know, as one thing starts, can have this whole downward spiral of other things intertwined. If your muscles are aching, you know, it's because not just one area is affected, but kind of a whole strain of muscles that are actually affected. So it's not just one individual thing that can be affected whenever you're having mental health. As mentioned, the elevated stress levels can weaken your immune system, therefore making you weaker to susceptible to diseases and whatnot. It's always good to know that, to be like water, to just let things in, breathe in the good air, out with the bad. When you're meditating, do these thoughts can come in, and just because a lot of times we suppress these thoughts but it's easier to let your thoughts flow in your meditation and just let it be. And this has really helped me a lot, especially during this COVID time. I haven't been, I miss my martial arts. I miss acting. I'm afraid of going out into the acting world right now. I miss doing stunts. I used to do some stunts with a stunt crew. And I was wanting to be a motion caption artist, you know, the ones that wear the suits, the body suits. And so here I have this mindset of always being physical, and yet I'm being restrained. And so now I have to kind of focus on the mental and just breathe it out, find some joy in life, talk it over with friends. That's another big thing. Have a circle of friends that you can talk to, because if you don't have that, you're going to be holding on to these emotions, and then you start that whole train wreck again. So that's one of my key takeaways is, you know, breathe, drink water, as Charlie was saying, drink some water, because water is great. But talk to people. Don't hold it in. Talk to people. Even if it's just like, hey, I just need to get something off my chest. You have someone. Don't think like you don't have that. You don't have anyone, because a lot of people do, and they hold things together and they bottle them up, and then all sorts of things happen physically and mentally.
Yeah, the connection between stress and, you know, the decreased immune system is so important that I don't think our society as a whole stresses enough. You know, a lot of times you get kind of like tends to be conservative ideology of like, oh, just, you know, bring yourself up by your bootstrap. And he's like, yeah, but do you understand how stress might stop me from doing this? It might take me a little bit longer, right? And I just wish that our society just accept this, because this is science, right? It's no longer like opinions, right? Yeah, and so I wanna end with our last question here, and it's about the idea of allyship. And you know, allyship tends to have activist connotation, but when I say allyship, it could be anything. It could be from a work initiative or something that a work peer can do. And so I'm gonna start with you guys. Sharzi, what are some things you think that in the workplace or friends or your peers can do that can help facilitate sort of this community, this allyship?
So I actually have an example. Really good example for allyship was when I had the opportunity at work to bring my VR information onto the job. And so I reached out to two techs, and they were from London. I've never met them before in my entire life. And I reached out to them and asked them if I can be part of the team or in any capacity. And, they could have easily been like, hey, listen, we're in this location. We can't do it. Time difference, any other reason. But they were very, very welcoming. They immediately were like, okay, well, what did you learn? What can we help you with? And although one of the techs was the leader of it, he was very inclusive in like saying, I'm not going to just tell you what to do. I want to get your input. And I think having that understanding where it's like, I kind of just being there for that person. The other aspect was while we were working on this, all of the protests were happening and things like that. And so although he was in another, location, he wouldn't ask me, hey, how are Black people dealing with these issues or how, whatever. He was like, how are you feeling? Right. And I think that's really important sometimes because I'm not a speaker for all Black women. Right. We all can have our experiences and it can be similar, but I'm not the person that can teach you all about Black people in like a 10-step guide. So we would be very much like, hey, how are you feeling? How are you dealing with everything? Do you need some time to work away from the project so you can get yourself together? And that's what's important. I feel like that level of just honing in on the person feels a lot better. And also one really important thing I think is really important for all allies to understand is you can relate to us by finding out more about us, but don't relate to us by giving us a stereotype. Meaning, I've unfortunately encountered people who's like, oh, hey, Sharzy, what's up, right? Or, hey, Sharzy, that's cool, right? And do these little things. And I'm like, I don't even talk like that, but okay, And so I feel like I know that I feel maybe it's from a good heart, but it's like, hey, look at the person, understand the person. Don't worry about what you think I would want to see. And then get to know me as a person. And then you can I do the same for other people. For any other person that's speaking to me, I don't come to them with a stereotype. So I feel like people can do that. That represents even just the basic form of like being an ally.
So you're saying that if someone were to ask you about the Black experience, you don't have a lecture ready to give to them? No,
I see. If they say, what did you experience as Sharzy in
exactly. Exactly.
I don't have a pre-formed script.
Who does, right? Who has a pre-made lecture? Those are all great points. How about you, Jared?
Good. Well, so I do have a little bit of a story too. So recently my brother came out as bisexual. So I'm like, okay, cool. Thank you for having the courage to come out. But without going into the family drama. So I think the best way to become an ally is also educating yourself. There's a great YouTube channel called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, but with Emmanuel Acho. And he's this really like he had Matthew McConaughey on there. He had this whole precinct of police on there. He had Chip and Joanna Gaines, and he's talking about these uncomfortable conversations and how these people can better educate themselves to being an ally. And so one of the things, the big things that he mentioned was it all comes down to the individual. If that individual doesn't want to learn, but hopefully that individual can learn and wants to learn, because then the individuals affects the house affects the city affects the state affects the nation affects the world. So everyone is all combined together here. And it's kind of some of those things are like, hey, Matthew McConaughey asked him, what can I do as a white man to now? And he's like, you can have these uncomfortable conversations and start that dialogue. There's another speaker, Ishad Manji. She's this Canadian Indian speaker who talks about offense is not the problem. It's like people giving offense and taking is the offense. People have a fear of offending people, and that we feel like are not permitted to actually offend them. But if you want to understand, then you have to have these uncomfortable conversations to be offensive and take offense from what they're trying to say to you, to kind of meet somewhere in the middle is my take on it.
Yeah. That's powerful. I personally like to have these kinds of conversations all the time. But yeah, so to me, it's interesting. This me working where I work now with Dreamtek. This is the first time that I have decided to sort of participate in a group like this, like Brown App. This is the first time out of the whatever 15 plus years that I've been working, and to me, I think this is super important. Having these conversations, having the space where we can all talk about these conversations. What was interesting is that when we started this group, Brown App, in the beginning, things were a little bit like, what is this supposed to be? What are we going to be doing? And then, six meetings later, we're disagreeing about topics. You know what I mean? And it's great. And especially if you don't have this outside of the workspace, having it in the workspace is so important. Guys, I really want to thank both of you for being part of this panel. This is our time. Thank you, Sharzi. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you so much. It was fun.
This was amazing for driving us. I agree. This is absolutely amazing. Thank you.
It's just one thing. It is a little different being an actor and kind of being someone different versus me trying to like pour my soul out into a conversation, talking deeper thoughts about this. So and I'm a tech, so a lot of times we're also behind the camera, and it's a weird kind of cool feeling about it.
Awesome. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you so much.
Man, what a great discussion. I love the points you guys made about mental health. Man, I took a lot of notes on that one. I loved Sharzi's input as being the only Black woman on the panel, which is extremely valuable. She's a minority of a minority. So that was awesome as well, too, man. Key, I can't thank you enough, my brother, for helping me co-moderate this. And I can't thank the rest of the guys and the lady for being part of this. And I suspect this will be the first of many more to come.
Yeah, man. What a great moment here that you've created. This is great. Just wanna thank Dreamtek again, and for sure there's gonna be many more hot fire for people for the future.
Absolutely. I'd like to thank Dreamtek as well for supporting it, just being open enough for us to have a platform to give more volume to our voice. So I guess on this note, we'll end it. We want to thank the viewing audience for taking some time out of their day or their evening or whatever for watching it. And you'll see us again pretty soon. I'm positive of it. All right, so we're going to end together on E-Bombay Key, right? All right. E-Bombay, brother.
E-Bombay, guys.